And yet somehow another week later, and the Bills continue to just make us all question our very existence, our very fandom, but not in the way you'd expect because they still somehow manage to win these games. We'll react to that, some news from today, and preview this upcoming matchup with the Cleveland Browns on tonight's episode of Under Review. Thank you all so much for tuning in. And without further ado, the host is going to be quiet and he's going to play that video. Let's go.
Previous play will go under review.
Citizens of Earth, lend me your eyes and ears, and thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of Under Review. Tonight's tagline is Frosty the Joe Man, because this will be the last show of Under Review, last episode of the show you see before Christmas. And before we begin tonight, I want to wish you all a very happy holiday, whatever it is you celebrate. I hope you enjoy the time spent with your loved ones. It is a great time of the season, and it's a great time of the football season for a few reasons. I don't mean to rhyme that often. One, the Buffalo Bills are coming off a really intense and rewarding comeback victory over a divisional rival on the road. Two, a signing that I don't think a lot of people expected to happen today, which is pretty neat, even if the player may be a little past their prime. We'll talk about that more. And three, the episode is not being done by just yours truly. I'm bringing back a guest I love having on this show, just someone in our network that does a lot of great work that I hope people can keep up with more and more as the seasons go on, as the years go on, because the information you will learn from this person is very valuable if you are a fan of football, but especially a fan of the Buffalo Bills. And he does do the numbers. That is quite true with his tagline. That is Mr. Adam Pensel. Adam, welcome back to the show. Happy holidays to you and your family. How are you doing tonight, my friend?
I'm good, Joe. Happy holidays to you. Happy holidays to everybody out there. It's good to be back. I love the timing of this, of when I'm able to come back, because, of course, the last time I was on the show with you, it was just before the Patriots game in week 5, right? And we had, I felt like we had a really good conversation then. And, here we are. We've been through almost an entire season, and it's, been up and down. And we're coming off of, some pretty high highs right now, heading into the third to last game of the season. And I'm just excited to, I'm really excited to see where this goes. I'm excited to talk to you about it and see where we land.
Absolutely. Yeah. The last time I had you on, I believe I was wearing this exact hat because that was right after the Bills beat the Saints. And that was the only game I went to in Buffalo this season, and the only time I've ever seen the Buffalo Bills win in person. And full disclosure, I thought about asking you to come on the show last week. I superstitioned myself because the last time I had you on was before Bills Pats and they lost. So I was like, let me get them on next week just in case the Bills do, if it alters the juju of this game. And lo and behold, they win. So thank
Good
you.
call.
We waited 1 week. It was
Good
a great
call.
decision on my part. It's the only good decision I made because I lost in all my fantasy leagues. So all the lineup switches I made. Well, there is one I'm still competing in. Shout out to Chris Seth. I'll see you on the battlefield. Thank you, Blake Corum. So anyways, this was just a huge win, and I want to get into it a little bit more. But before we do, I do want to react to the news that came out today on the Buffalo Bills front, and that is that they made a very interesting signing given some of their injuries that they faced this year, including most recently to Jordan Phillips, who is going to be out for probably the foreseeable future with an ankle injury. They signed Matthew Judon to the practice squad, which I think is just interesting. Matthew Judon, 33 years old, a bit long in the tooth, played for Atlanta last season, didn't make a terribly large splash. That pass rush still was a bit weak. Then you come into this season, he plays for Miami, doesn't really make much noise on the stat sheet, very few pressures. And you just begin to wonder if it's the downturn of his career. And, you have a player that you've seen in your own division for multiple seasons who has pass rush juice now joining you in the practice squad. hopefully able to provide some sort of boost to a unit that really needs it, considering that they're very thin at the position and a bit top heavy at the position as it seems. So, Adam, I want to turn it back to you because I know on Twitter, and if you guys, again, aren't following Adam on Twitter, do yourself a favor and do so, posted a few clips of Matthew Judon in Miami, and your reactions seem to be a bit more positive than what the stats have shown. Give me your reason for that and your reaction to this signing.
Yeah, well, I mean, it makes perfect sense. Obviously, the Bills like veterans, especially as we head into the postseason. It's always good to have these depth guys kind of at your disposal when you need them, and because you never know when you're going to need a player like Judon to step in and give you some help. The first thing that I pulled was my standard kind of pass rush effectiveness chart that I look at, which it charts the pressure rate as measured by NFL Next Gen Stats, and the players' get off speed, which how quickly do they release when the ball is snapped. And in looking at the numbers there, Judon is basically been about an average player this year in terms of the amount of pressure that he's generated. But the one thing that I did notice is that his get off speed is actually still pretty good. He's well above average, in that category. So when I saw that, that's when, of course, I decided to pull up the film, pop on NFL Pro and just start looking through some clips. And what I noticed is, a few things. Number one, Miami used him in a lot of different ways. He wasn't really lined up, as a defensive tackle as much in the middle. He was used, on the edges, but they were completely happy dropping him into coverage, mixing that type of thing up. But when I watched him rush, there's still some juice there. He's not a guy that's going to get around the edge with his flexibility and bendiness, but he's a power rusher. He's still got, the ability to bull rush and sort of push and compress and collapse that pocket inward in a lot of the clips that I saw, which, when you pair that up with a guy like, Joey Bosa on the opposite side, and, if they are fortunate enough to get, Ed Oliver back in time for the playoffs, a guy who we know, on those obvious passing downs can really shoot the gaps and create some disruption. He could be a really nice piece, situational piece for them on passing downs. And what was probably even more encouraging was what I saw out of him in the run game. He seemed to be very effective at keeping his leverage, maintaining his gaps, not letting himself get too tangled or caught up with offensive tackles, and really made some beautiful tackles as well. Single arm grabs, bringing players in and getting them down to the ground. And lastly, the biggest thing that stood out to me and why I'm sure the Bills and McDermott love this guy or just like the idea of signing him was when I was watching his film. You see that when the play breaks down or, the runner breaks, he's one of the first guys who's rallying to tackle, chasing down the ball carrier. He's always rallying to the ball. So he seems to have, that basic veteran presence, kind of understanding, skill set, do all the little things right type of things that, make him most likely a nice, reliable depth piece that, they might be able to lean on a little bit. And the fact that he still has, enough agility to, drop into coverage and do a little bit of that. I almost wonder, everyone wants to try to replace Michael Hoyt, right? And, you're not going to replace Michael Hoyt, but I wonder if they would even entertain playing him in certain snaps that way. I don't know how much rush he's done from the inside or not over the course of his career, but, I think the possibilities are there for him. I think that he can, give them some good football and give them some help when they need it. And I like having it. I think it's kind of a no-brainer.
I agree. I mean, this is at this point in the season, like many have said, it's a dart throw. It is a veteran player that got cut from a team that is not competing, maybe of his own volition of, hey, I think I have the ability to go help a team that's going to contend out to some degree. Miami cuts him. Here you go. You have him available to you and you bring him on. And I don't think there's anything risky about this move at this point. A 33-year-old pass rusher that has a lot of experience, has played for playoff teams in the past that you've seen a few times and know very well. It's really an opportunity to hopefully see if you could squeeze some juice out of a player who is, again, longer in the tooth and probably in the last few years of his career, if not the last year. And if you get the potential that you have seen from Matthew Judon, on tape where you see again that get off speed and the power is still there to some degree, then I think if you're asking him to be a rotational edge rusher with the occasional, again, like you alluded to, the Michael Hoyt role, mugging the A gap and sitting behind, whether it's an interesting alignment where you have a linebacker up close or whether he's just there as the fifth lineman in an odd front, I think at that point, why not? It really couldn't harm you any more than bringing up a different practice squad guy like Shaq Lawson, or if they kept Andre Jones, bringing up one of those guys and seeing what they could potentially do. I definitely am a fan of the move just from the idea that if you get anything at all, and I'm talking like a modicum of good pass rush, you got something out of this. I don't think there is really anything downside about it. But what I really think would help them, if there is any sort of juice out of Matthew Judon right now, if there is something you can get from him as a pass rusher, I think it just frees TJ Sanders. I think it gives you the ability to kick him back inside and not force him to play edge primarily, allow him to be in that true hunter role. I think, honestly, if you can get Judon elevated for this game specifically against Cleveland, against a pretty maligned pass blocking offensive line, which we'll get to when we do the preview, and just let TJ Sanders hunt at the three technique position, I think there could be some room for success there. And I think that could open up opportunity for both players in the sense of Judon, maybe because there's more interior disruption, he's getting a clear path to the quarterback and still generating power. And if he's able to do anything from the edge, Sanders might have opportunities if they get into those pass rushing situations. And you called out the run defense. I'm glad there still is life there as a run defender. Again, when I'm talking expectations for the player, I am not saying we're bringing him in and he's going to turn into Myles Garrett. But I do think for a 33-year-old veteran that you can call it from the practice squad, you can truly do a lot worse than a player that has proven he had been a stalwart pass rusher in his career that might still have something like a little bit of something left in the tank to provide you in situations where you just need a guy to go get you the bucket on a 3rd and long if you end up in those situations. And just, again, to me, it's just, there's really nothing to hate about the move. Like, I don't think there's really any reason to show any anguish or remorse for it. This is kind of the thing where the fan base had said, hey, they're not getting guys outside of former Bills. Well, here's a former Bill, in fact, or here's a non-former Bill, in fact, a former divisional rival coming to play for your practice squad. They just did it with Darnell Savage a few weeks ago too. I think we can put that narrative to rest now. I don't think the Bills are only getting former Bills, and they'll entertain all options. And here's an option that they are entertaining. Let's see if it works, because I would really like it to.
Yeah, I posted, just so everybody knows, I posted a series of clips from the All 22 on Twitter on my profile at Adam Pencil. You can go check it out. And the thing that stands out to me is I feel like, what stands out to me in some of these clips is that it seems like opposing offenses are respecting him. I was watching a lot from the Baltimore game. Very rarely did they run it to his side. When he did, he was making plays. There's even a clip that I have of him against the Bills that they use Jackson Hawes to kind of just chip him before Reggie Gilliam gets to him. It seems like he was just at least warranting some focus and some attention by some of these offenses to make sure that, he doesn't make a mess of what they're trying to do. And yeah, I mean, like I said, he's not going to be a barn burner, in the pass rush. He's not that guy anymore. But as a part of the picture as a whole, his ability to power rush, collapse that pocket, make it just a little bit tighter, a little bit more uncomfortable, for the quarterback. I even have a couple of clips in here where, if you count the seconds from the snap, he's getting to, he's collapsing that pocket and getting close enough to generate pressure in, under 3 seconds, but the throw's coming out so quick, that it doesn't matter. So, I think that there's still a little bit of juice there. It'll be interesting to see, how quickly they get him in the lineup and give him an elevation. Obviously we could have some games, down the stretch here that maybe don't mean as much anymore. We'll kind of see how, the next 3 weeks shake out before they head into the playoffs, and might be a good opportunity to get him a lot of snaps and break him in, before you go into the postseason. But to me, it's a no-brainer signing. I love that he, I don't know if he had offers anywhere else, but it's certainly nice that he's here in Buffalo, and good piece to have the rest of the way.
Yeah. And I mean, again, the expectations are limited. I don't expect terribly much from him, both in a usage standpoint, but also in a pass rush standpoint. I got curious, so I pulled it up on PFF. Out of 20% of qualifying edge rushers, so 524 total, he's currently sitting at 113th in pass rush productivity at 3.5. Just to put that in perspective, the number one in Myles Garrett is sitting at 12.3. So I don't think we're going to be getting a crazy surplus of pass rush juice. But again, this is a practice squad veteran that you're getting late in the season. If he gives you any flashes or even the few snaps he gets just to provide you with a pressure on his side to disrupt a play, I think that's all you can ask for, and we'd welcome it with open arms. They don't really have the luxury of choice right now at the edge rusher position, losing Michael Hoyt, losing Landon Jackson. You got to make do with who's available, and he was available, and I welcome him to the team, and I wish him the best of luck. I hope Matthew Judon can provide a spark because, again, you get anything of the old Judon from this move, and maybe it helps him if he's in a Nielsen scheme that's going to have a lot of stunts and twists next to him to be able to give him some opportunity. Maybe that number goes up. Maybe you get something from him. So I think just to put a bow on it, low risk, potentially decent reward. I'm not expecting much, but I'm still happy they did it and glad to see that they just, with the Jordan Phillips injury, again, not my favorite player. Like I hope he heals up, but I didn't think he was giving them really much in general besides occasional pass rush chops. It feels like a very obvious replacement if you're talking about being able to ask Sanders to go back inside and now have an edge rusher to take that spot. So I welcome him, hoping for the best. Maybe we see him Sunday, and if not, would be interesting to see them bring him out against Philly, even though, again, I don't think we would see a lot of snaps from him. But Adam, anything else on Matthew Judon before we carry on to our recap of Sunday?
Looking forward to seeing his sleeves. What sleeves we getting?
I think he's going to go. So he did red in New England. He also did red in Atlanta, right? So I don't think red's off limits. If anything, that's like a very logical choice. But if I'm not mistaken, doesn't Solomon occasionally wear sleeves?
Oh, he might actually.
Yeah. He might. I wonder if he'll go for like just blue or maybe white sleeves. I'm looking forward to that too. That's a great point. I love the sleeves. I like him a lot more now that he's not on the Patriots or the Dolphins. Yeah. He was on the Falcons. It looked sick, but when he was on those teams, ugly. But now he's on the Bills. It's going to look so cool. So welcome to the Bills, Matthew Judon. I know I called you old. I'm sorry, but I hope you do well for the team. Prove me wrong. Make me look stupid. I like when players make me look stupid because that means good things are happening because I'm very positive most of the time. Now, let's move on. Yes, Sunday was hell. Just to recap my personal experience watching this game, I went to a bar with a few of my friends, and I was very miserable for the first half of that game. I was very sad. I wasn't drinking anything. I was just having water, I promise. And I was sad. Then we went to a different bar, and the Bills started winning, and I wasn't sad anymore. Now, to put it in just football perspective, wow. I mean, it was a game you thought that the Buffalo Bills were going to get stormed out of the building like they didn't even belong on the same field. It was a mess with their tackling, their running defense, their defensive line was getting blown off their gaps. No one could wrap anybody up. Runs were, I think, averaging over 6 yards a carry at a point. You had the explosive run to Travion Henderson, which was a dagger in the first half. Drake May taking advantage of the vacated fronts and the linebackers dropping back. So he just takes the easy rush lane for touchdowns. The Kayshon Boutte non-challenge, which should have been challenged or at least NFL overturned, that didn't happen. It was shaping up to be an absolute blowout and a really ugly and deflating game for the Bills, really for their season, even if they did would still go to the playoffs. I think they would. Then the second half comes around and it's a night and day difference. The defense completely bears down with the exception of the one Travion Henderson explosive run, but they put Drake May in a bit more of a blender. They offer him a myriad of different looks, coverages, pressures, get him to hold the ball, get him to not really trust what he's seeing. Max Hairston does a great job manning up Boutte on the backside, which I think is really good. And Anthony and Eric pointed that out in their film room. It was a completely different team in the second half. And if you give, again, Josh Allen any sort of crumb of momentum that they could come back in a game, he's going to start making plays, and that was on display. And James Cook was running extremely well. The offensive line was doing a really nice job of getting push in the front and the interior specifically. And then, of course, as Eric and Anthony pointed out, the wrinkles and the constraints that they offered on some of their looks. And you have, the presenting of mesh, but then they change a route for Dawson Knox and they are completely fooled and he's wide open, or the play action off of the duo. A really sound comeback effort from the Bills, who never looked back after they were down in the early hole. And it was just truly on brand for this team, Adam. It was what we've come to expect, this high variance, volatile Buffalo Bills team with a defense that seems to give up big plays, but comes through in big moments with very substantial plays. When you talk about Joey Bosa's tip on the pass from May that very well could have been a first down to Diggs. You talk about the sacks from Milano in the game he played, the interception from Trey White. All this to say, it was a very unexpected comeback, but a comeback nonetheless, and a huge win to prevent the hats and t-shirts in Foxborough and to keep you alive in the division. Adam, what did you think about this one? I mean, give me all your thoughts.
Well, who was it unexpected for, the comeback?
Not you. Okay. Not okay. Yes. Yes. All right. And I forgot to mention this part. I went and I caved to my emotions. I try very hard to be level-headed, but this game was breaking me, mainly because for Patriot games, like I went to school in New England, like college in New England. So a lot of my friends are Pats fans. Like I went out to dinner with a bunch of my friends. One of them is a diehard Pats fan. Like him and I were talking back and forth and very respectfully, but just more about like the game itself. And I'm like, yeah, I think it'll be close. Then it's just like 21-0. And I'm thinking like, I am going to get destroyed. Like this is terrible. So I go on a huge rant in the Cover One chat. And Adam is, to his credit, the only person who just said, I think they're going to come back. I'm not worried. And I'm like, how can you think that, Adam? You're insane. No way. And as they did, just cool, calm, and collected. So I applaud you. You get my props on this show. I apologize for reacting. I definitely called for a few jobs and said I gave up and like was getting full on nihilistic in that chat. So Adam, I need to maintain your positivity and your neutrality in those moments. I respect you for it. I will learn from that. So not a shock to you, but apart from that, give me your thoughts on this game.
I can't take full credit because there were definitely moments that I was really having a hard time with it myself. Particularly the photo of Stephon Diggs and Mac Hollins barking at the Bills sideline. I was just like, threw a tweet out there that I ended up deleting afterwards, after everyone got a chance to comment on it. And I put a little thing down there, the picture of him. I was like, great job, Bean, great job. Like letting, at least letting Hollins out of the building. And then I, of course, replied like, no, seriously, great job. We don't need, after they came back and won, the really interesting thing about the game script in that game was I know that the first half went the way it did. It was really bad, and it just felt like nothing was going to go their way. And the Patriots were going to have the best time. And we were just going to hear about, it's the downfall of the Bills. It was happening in my fantasy chat. I was seeing it on the timeline.
Yeah.
I was at the game in Buffalo the week before against the Bengals. And I remember kind of scrolling Twitter during the first half of that game from my seats. And I was just watching how negative the timeline was about just the way things looked. And, Burrow's carving us up again and the defense can't stop anything. And, but the game, when you watch it in person, I feel like is never as bad as it feels when you're watching it in person versus watching it on TV. And I think that maybe there are these little nuances that it's just a little bit easier to pick up on. You're seeing the scope of the whole field. I don't really know what it is, but when I was watching that New England game, they ended up scoring on their opening drive, but what really happened? The Bills technically got them into a third down, forced them to make a long, difficult throw to Keyshawn Boutte that really should have been called incomplete. Okay. Now it wasn't. The Patriots went down and scored, and then they scored again, and then they scored again. Okay. But the Bills were actually doing intermittently a pretty reasonable job at shutting down the run. They had made some plays to stop the pass, but I felt like when you watched what happened in that first half, New England had to throw the entire kitchen sink to get that result at the Bills, right? You had Drake May, 2 rushing touchdowns, right? Like they haven't used him in design runs very much at all this season. And there he is, running two in. You had a couple of explosive runs from Hendo, but I don't know. I just felt like watching it. I said, I know the score is what it is. The Bills partly gave the ball back to them because of self-inflicted mistakes. Again, penalties, from the offensive line, stuff that, they really, should have been avoiding. And I know hadn't done a great job of avoiding on the road up to that point. But, you watch this team play the way they did the week before. You've seen them come back from these deficits multiple times over and over and over again this season. And it just feels like this version of the Buffalo Bills. This team knows how to play when they're up, when they're down. It doesn't matter. They can just stay level headed, go out and do the job they need to do, not let, the score or, the storyline or whatever impact the way that they're going to go play the game. And lo and behold, the kitchen sink was thrown and New England had nothing left. There were no answers. The Bills came out, scored the touchdown to start the second half. Then the very first drive that New England has, play number one, I know that Ant commented, for example, he really felt that the Patriots shot themselves in the foot by, moving away from the run. But what did they do on the very first play of their first drive in the second half after the Bills scored? They ran the ball on first down. And what did the Bills do? They stuffed it for a 1-yard loss. Okay. Then you're in second and 11. Could they have still run out of that? Yeah, sure. But man, when you're negative 1 yard, it really starts leaning towards, I need to throw the ball twice to move the sticks and keep this drive sustained, which is what they tried to do. Bills got the stop and boom, they're off to the races and scoring again. And by that point, you're back in a 1-possession game at the snap of the fingers, right? So, the thing that I thought was the most funny or interesting, maybe not funny, but interesting about the end result of this game is there's a new stat that I've been tracking this season. It's not really a new stat per se, but the way that I'm using it is new. Drive series conversion rate, right? How often a team converts a set of downs into a new down or a touchdown, and how often they allow that to happen on defense. Okay. So what I do is I take the offense's series conversion rate and I subtract their own defensive series conversion rate, what they allow other teams to do to them from it. And the rate that you end up at kind of shows how more frequently do you convert a set of downs versus letting your opponents convert them, right? So the teams in the positive tend to, more likely are going to be winners of their games and are the better teams in the league. And long story short, the week 5 game, the Bills had a positive 5% net series conversion rate. And this game, they had a 5% positive net series conversion rate. And I even said after the loss in week 5, when you looked at where their turnovers occurred, those 2 turnovers accounted for negative 11 expected points added. I mean, there was your game right there. So, the game script was definitely very different from week 5. But ultimately the Bills converted their series, over the same percentage, the same clip that it was in week 5, and they got the win. And I felt like they should have had the win in week 5 too. So yeah, here we are today.
Yeah, each game that they've played against Drake May's Patriots has been a bit of a toss-up. They've come to 3-point spreads. Granted, the first time that they played Drake May in Buffalo, it was pretty handedly the Bills' game. It was a late score that led to the Pats being down by 3, and I think a failed onside that wound. Or no, I don't even think it was a failed onside. I think the Bills just ran the clock out. So that first game, I agree. I think that was self-inflicted errors, but credit to the Pats. They took advantage of the errors, and they ended up winning on a finale field goal 3-point spread. I think in this game, I was expecting more of the same. I had said it when Anthony was on my show last week, and it was shaping up again to be way worse, but that's what it came down to again, the difference of 1 score. I think the thing that's evident about these two teams when they play each other to start is that they match up against each other pretty well, for better or for worse. I think it's just now a matter of, we know that each team is here in the division to stay. Each team has a franchise quarterback. Each team has a really solid skill group in certain areas of their offense and defense. And therefore, it becomes a bit more of a clash of the Titans. So these games are just, I think, for the foreseeable future, going to be incredibly close, annoying matchups. And I hate it, but that's what it is. At least this is a version of the Patriots that we can beat, and we've proven we can beat them. And hopefully it stays that way, just for the sake of being a Bills fan. But to get into this game specifically, what really impressed me the most, I mean, I'll give the flowers and the cap to Joe Brady and Bobby Babich and Sean McDermott probably a bit too, for the second half adjustments and really hammering down and not straying away from what they're good at. Because one of my criticisms starting on the offensive side of the ball, but Joe Brady had been a tendency to kind of play panicked if that makes sense. It was almost like the games he was calling didn't really have much flow to them. It felt like they would get away from the run game a little bit too early. They would lean in a bit too much on early first down runs to a point where it was predictable. It would get thwarted. Second down is a bind and a bit of a grind. It doesn't pan out, and all of a sudden the Bills are facing a third and long. I felt like in this game, while there were third and longs, it was a bit more of a controlled effort from the offense. Numerous times where there were second down conversions and that they were able to really keep pace and never feel like they were out of it entirely on offense, except for really points in the first half. And even then, that was just execution errors rearing their heads, like the Brandon Cooks drop. And then
Yep.
the defensive adjustments again. I don't want to keep seeing the Bills end up in these types of deficits to make these adjustments. But the fact of the matter is, this is a team that has proven numerous times this season that their pivots on defense keep them in games and give the offense a chance. And being more honest about the losses that they've had in similar situations like Atlanta and Miami, the defense, I mean, in Miami, the numbers are bad, but that defense kept them in the game for a very long time before it finally broke because they couldn't get off the field because the offense was just having a dreadful day and couldn't get anything done and turned the ball over twice when they were in the red zone. It was really, really ugly effort from the offense that hung the defense a bit out to dry, despite what the numbers say and the final H-hand run. And in that Atlanta game, the same thing. The defense kept them right in that game the entire way, and the offense couldn't convert. The Houston game, they adjusted in the second half. You have numerous examples of this defense being able to kind of stop the bleeding and give the offense, which is what should be the strength of your team when you have Josh Allen, an opportunity to come back. And these games against the Bengals and the Patriots are what happens when the offense doesn't lay an egg and doesn't shoot itself in the foot and actually can execute on numerous drives. 5 straight touchdown drives on their possessions is a very impressive feat when you're going up on the road against what is a very good New England defense, one that was missing some starters, but I will still give credit, has plenty of talent in the secondary, has plenty of talent in their trenches up front. And the Bills were still able to move the ball with a mix of their run and their pass, the uptick in play action that we've been seeing from Joe Brady lately. I think that this offense this weekend for the past couple of weeks has been a changed unit in the sense that Joe Brady is kind of using tendency against defenses to be able to kind of play ahead a bit more. Again, talking about play action. And as I pointed out, what was mentioned in the film room this week that Eric and Anthony did a great job of breaking down the constraints and how that affects a defense and how they're going to play you and where they're going to be lined up in. I thought Joe Brady just over the past few weeks, as I have said, that I've lost a bit of faith that I'm good on him and all the things I've said a few weeks ago. Well, I'm not going to come off that just yet because I want to see how they do when they get to the playoffs. I will give him all the credit in the world for the past few weeks of really just leading into things that I think the Bills are, their strongest. Like, again, those duo runs against Pittsburgh where they didn't need to come off of it because there was no adjustment made, or there was an attempt at an adjustment, but they never proved that they could beat it. And in games like this, where again, like using the 2 running back sets, taking full advantage of your tight end room and using Dawson Knox way more as a receiver, especially off play action shots, leading into your run game, not just on first down and passing a bit more frequently on first down. I just feel like, the whole idea of the predictability and the game script issues that I was having a problem with a few weeks ago, those are being answered now. And if they can continually be answered to the playoffs to a point where it leads to success for the Bills, then my stance on Joe Brady will change. I'm very pleased with what I've seen over the past few weeks. Getting into the defensive side of the ball, as I just pointed out, and I'll continue, I thought they just did a nice job of not being predictable. The tackling was still a little bit of an issue, but it just felt like all the coverage mix-ups, the man coverage that they were playing and being able to have success there, I think that led to just, again, keeping Drake May at bay. It was really impressive. I mean, when you look at his first half numbers compared to his second half numbers as a passer, it was a night and day difference. And Drake May, who I think is incredibly talented and is going to emerge himself as a top 5 quarterback in the NFL very soon, I thought the fact that they were able to kind of still keep him contained and not even be able to allow him to get those Z-axis plays off that he was able to do in the first matchup against the Bills, I thought it was very impressive. And I give my kudos to the defensive room, Babich, McDermott, for containing him and really taking away what I think is the Patriots' biggest strength, which is their downfield passing attack, which just faltered and fizzled out in the second half. And Adam, the one final thing I want to talk about, and I've talked about it every week, I'll continue to talk about it because it, to me, again, when you talk about this offense, what their strengths are, what they need, it's field position. Ray Davis has been excellent. And I think the Bills have finally solved their kick return problem. They have a dedicated kick returner who is not only setting them up, but he is a genuine threat to be a bucket every single time he gets the ball. He is the NFL's leading kickoff returner as far as yardage gained. He is getting them into better field position consistently when he gets the ball in his hands. It wasn't just the Houston game, but this game against New England was tremendous effort from him. With Mecole Hardman coming back for the punt returning duty, most likely, I think they have their kick returner. I think their return units are set. And I think that the biggest weakness in the special teams room, and subsequently something that was setting this Bills offense up for failure so much, might have been resolved. And I think that is going to make a not just difference, but a massive, massive, massive difference in a very rough stretch of the season when you're talking about playoffs and some of the teams you could be facing. So difficulty wise, rough stretch. They need their return game to be on point now. If you want to run the ball, if you want to open up the playbook, if you want shot plays down the field, if you want the potential for explosives, if you want to watch the offense play a more loose brand of football and get more creative and have the bag of tricks Joe Brady may have get pulled out, you need to have good field position with the style of offense this team plays. Ray Davis has provided that for you. And I'm very, very pleased with this performance. I am happy that he has seemed to find a bit of a hole in the wall in the team since he couldn't be a primary runner because James Cook is doing such a great job. This is a phenomenal running back room. And for all the criticism I've had of Brandon Beane in the offense and everything, I will give him credit for setting up this running back room the way it has. I think Ty Johnson is a phenomenal third back and has proven to be very useful as a screen option, but also as a receiving back. We know what James Cook is. He's tremendous. He has an opportunity to be the rushing title this year. But Ray Davis being that return guy was such a need. They found it. Keep leaning on him. I think this kid has all the potential in the world, and I'm very, very impressed. And I thought that was a massive factor in this game. Adam, any final thoughts? Anything else you want to add on this matchup?
Yeah, shout out Chris Tabor, man. I mean, this was something that was talked about. And I feel like that's been one of the strengths. You know, usually when I get worked up about people saying McDermott doesn't do anything good, it's all Josh Allen. You know, obviously a large portion of the team's success is Josh Allen, but there's just so many. I mean, the amount of things that the head coach and the leader of the organization has to do in order to put a winning program on the field year after year after year after year, the way, you know, McDermott and Beane have done it, is making sure that, you know, no stone goes unturned and that every corner of the organization has quality coaches, you know, quality development, quality strategy. And, you know, here he is picking up Chris Tabor in the offseason, and look at where the special teams are now. Something that was really kind of, you know, giving them issues that, you know, the 2 years prior to that, you know, he decides to move on. I feel like he's not, you know, he doesn't keep people around if they're not performing. Right. And Tabor's come in and really taken this unit and made the most of it. And I also think it's cool and great for Ray Davis. You know, he didn't have the greatest start to the season, right? I mean, he wasn't getting a lot of playing time. It seemed like, you know, he just was in these spots where he was slipping with the ball, and, you know, the way Cook was playing, it was hard to get him on the field. And now here he is, you know, in the spot where he's found a niche that he's been incredibly helpful to them. And you're absolutely right. I mean, while the offense did an incredible job converting on every single one of those drives in that 5-drive run, if it weren't for some of those long, you know, gains on those kickoffs that they had, you know, thanks to Ray Davis and the special teams unit, you know, all it would have taken is one of those series, you know, a little bit of extra distance, 10 yards, 5 yards even, can be the difference between a drive converting and a drive not converting. And so I'm really encouraged by that. I think it's a great sign going into the postseason that they have that figured out, because I feel like every aspect of each of their units is really rolling into form at the exact right time.
I completely agree with that. And I say most of their units, I'm still very skeptical about their run defense. But even then, prior to this game, their run defense against the Bengals and the Steelers was quite good. And with the Bengals, I think that is probably one of the better offensive lines you've seen from them over the past few years, with a very talented runner in Chase Brown. So I kind of sat there like, okay, that seems like a legitimate test for them. And they passed it. I was very pleased. New England game kind of reeled me back in a smidge, and I'm kind of sitting here bit skeptical, but passing defense, I think their secondary has played really well. Again, the emergence of Cole Bishop and Jordan Poyer's ability to stabilize some of his run defense reps have been really, really nice to see. He should have had an interception maybe a pick six if he gets enough of a jump on that ball where he can get a lane to run back. But even then, he should have had an interception. He was in the right place. Their secondary has stabilized, and I'm very happy about that because I was really worried about it. Trey White, by the way,
He's
bravo.
playing great football.
He's playing
playing great
phenomenally. I
ball.
mean, I feel like when he was coming into the year, like there were some lulls in man coverage. It wasn't all bad, but it definitely felt like he was getting dusted at times. You know, there was the man coverage reps he had against Jalen Waddle against Miami in the first matchup. Tough ask for any corner. But when you know Trey White's up there in age and the injury history, you're not expecting him to be as spry, and you're kind of sitting like, man, we need to get Hairston back because we need that guy who can just like be able to match these guys and put Trey in better positions. But there were reps for Trey in this game against multiple receivers where he just looked good. And I'm very, very pleased with his performance and his development throughout the year. And it's just so happy to have that Trey White back because, like, this feels like the closest thing we've had to full potential Trey White since 2023, man. And that's huge for the secondary when you talk about Christian Benford getting healthy and coming back after missing the week. And Max Hairston's development. Hairston had a great game against New England, like 1 or 2 reps here and there where he did get a bit beat, but otherwise, like, and that's the life of a corner. You're not going to win every single rep. True shutdown guys will still get got eventually. It happens. But I think they're in a really good spot with their secondary. It's really just that front seven, which I thought would initially be the strength, but injury kind of ravaged them a bit. If they could stabilize their run defense even just a touch, I'm very excited to see how they can fare in the playoffs because I think at that point, they can hang with any team. And that's all you need to prove to me. So, yes, I definitely agree. I think the units are getting hotter at the right time. The offense, you know, the Pittsburgh game, they found their stride in the second half. That seems to be their seasonal nexus event where, like, they go through a rut, then they kind of come out of it and they look dominant for a stretch. Good game against the Steelers, tremendous game against the Bengals, and a tremendous game against New England. Now you have an opportunity to do it again against a very good defense. We'll get to that in a second. But now the special teams unit, Adam, getting normal, getting right. I was already a very big fan of their coverage unit. I think they were doing a really nice job. I mean, even in this game against New England, explosive returns had been an issue in the past. I think they've gotten better in that regard. They just needed to get the returning down, and I think they're starting to. And I'm so happy because I cannot stress enough how often I talk about it on the show, at least once a week. And it feels like we're seeing it realized. I hope, and I think Hardman is going to come back given the Chase Lund information today where he got moved to the IR. I think Hardman comes back. I think they have the system in place. We could tell Khalil Shakir, hey, buddy, it's okay. Stay on the sideline. You don't got to go out there and get throttled for no reason or call a fair catch. Focus on receiving. You're good. Hardman is back, and Hardman provides a lot of juice in that role too. I'm excited to watch him. Just hold the ball. That's all I ask of you. But yeah, I mean, anything else you want to say, Adam, before we move on to our matchup against the Cleveland Browns on the road?
This could be a record-setting game, right? In multiple ways.
Why couldn't it have been like 3 sacks away? Why couldn't it have been 3 sacks away? Yes. Remember that stat I said before, friends, about the pass rush productivity and Matthew Judon's and how he was 113th or whatever. And the number 1 I said on that list was Myles Garrett. Well, folks, that is not by accident. He is far and away the best pass rusher in football. I don't think it can be disputed at this point. I would even go as far as to call him the best defensive player in football. You could convince me best player in football. You really could. Myles Garrett is a legend, a future Hall of Famer, no doubt about it. First ballot. A tremendous athlete, a gifted pass rusher. There is no move in his arsenal that isn't effective. He is a terrifying matchup for anybody. And I'm scared of Myles Garrett. I will say it on the show. I don't care. Like, I know this is a bad Browns team with a bad record, but when you have an edge rusher like Myles Garrett in the holster for your defense, it does not matter what the record is. He can keep you in a game. He can wreck a game. There is no matchup too tall for Myles Garrett. And the most infuriating part about it for the Bills is you don't have the luxury this year to just try and throw doubles at Myles Garrett. You could try to chip him. You could try, and you might get a little success with it, especially if you're running the ball away from him, whether you have the tight end aligned opposite side of Myles Garrett, so you could have some strong side runs. I don't know, but you could try. It's only going to work for so long, and you're going to have to throw the ball quickly, and you're going to have to lean on your run game because Myles Garrett will try to wreck it. But also, there's a lot of talent in this Browns defensive line. It is not just Myles Garrett this year, and I think that's a big reason why Myles Garrett has had the opportunities he's had and has been unlocked the way he has. Because you look at some of the other additions to this group. And like, I know Wright has been playing well. Mason Graham, their rookie, is developing, but has pass rush chops. Like, Isaiah McGuire is a depth guy. Mike Hall, who I really loved in the draft a couple years ago, that defensive tackle, fun player. Like, they're so fun. Their defensive line is so good, but Myles Garrett is the elevating force for it. And Adam, I mean, what do you do on offense? What do you think the Bills' strategy is going to be? I have my theories, but I'm very interested to hear what you think about a Cleveland Browns team who, by the way, I just had it pulled up and I can't believe I closed it out. But since week 11, they're still the 7th EPA defense. So even though they had that rough game against Chicago last week, I would attribute that far more to their offense getting nothing going at all and leaving the defense out to dry a little bit. This is still a tremendous unit, a very talented defense that does have injury. Denzel Ward will not be playing in this game, and that is a big loss for them in the secondary. But Myles Garrett's in the game, so at that point, that's the focal point. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that, the one luxury that you have here is that Shedeur Sanders so far, and, his career is very young. He's still very early on, but he has by far been, maybe the worst quarterback, by a lot of the efficiency stats that you look at, EPA per play, success rate, by far in the league this entire year. His numbers are even worse than Gabriel's, right? So, if you're the Bills, you got to be thinking to yourself, Cleveland should not be able to get much of anything going on offense. So you have the luxury of testing their run defense a little bit. If I'm the Bills, I'm coming out and I'm first and foremost trying to run the ball. And I'm doing everything that I can to tire out their defensive line, tire out Myles Garrett, get him disinterested, get him out of the game, and really just push it and keep Josh Allen out of harm's way, for crying out loud. That Myles Garrett is going to be fired up, trying to break that sack record, trying to get after Josh if you're getting into a drop back game. And that's really not something that they, are probably overly interested in doing. Right. So I kind of expect this to be a ground and pound game early on, standard kind of feel out like they have been. And if they can find success early, running the ball, then it's just going to open up a lot more for them and make their lives, even easier in terms of being able to get the ball out quick, get rid of it quick. Because if they're going to be putting a bunch of guys in the box to try to stop the run and stacking things over, that's when you can get into those extension of the run game plays, those, wide receiver screens that everybody loves so much. And, just keep the quick passing game there, and move the ball and just get out of there with a clean win and move on to the next one.
Yeah, I'm in complete agreement. I think when you just know what's at stake with Myles Garrett and the potential record, I think that does loom very large in the minds of everyone on the offensive staff, including Josh Allen. I don't think they're going to try and allow him too much of an opportunity. So I think it is going to be, again, more of what you've seen from them, right? A lean into their heavier personnel. It seems like Dalton Kincaid is going to play in this game, just given the full practice and the load management they have on his knee. McDermott sounded optimistic. He didn't want to commit to it, but I think he might play. So if you have Kincaid in this game, even in a limited sample size, that means your 13 personnel dream is realized. But even if you're not going to go for that and you go for more 12 or 11 or maybe 22, I think that the Bills are just going to try and continue to hammer, again, more of their gap runs, their duo runs, and try to keep it away from Myles Garrett. If they do try to run to Garrett's side, it's just going to be emphasized on the tight ends matching up with him. I wonder if they decide to be psychopaths and try to get Jackson Hawes in a one-on-one matchup with Myles Garrett.
I was just thinking that.
Adam, I'm going to be watching for it. If they do it and he pulls it off, you are never going to hear me shut up about this player. You already can't. I love Jackson Hawes. He's my favorite pick of the draft. And I think that he's far and away, in terms of impact for what they're doing on offense, really in general, I think you could make an argument he's their most impactful draft pick this year. You could argue Deion Walker. You could make some cases for other guys. I think Jackson Hall, given the consistency, some of his moments, some of the matchups, including a one-on-one against TJ Watt just a few weeks ago, he's everything you wanted from him as a blocking tight end. I am praying now that they actually try to get Jackson Hawes one-on-one versus Myles Garrett, man. How cool would it be if he holds up to that guy? Because that would just be such a badge of honor for a rookie to be able to have a good rep against the best edge rusher in football, best defensive player in football, you could argue. And again, I think it's hammering those gap runs, leaning on James Cook and trying to get push, a lot of heavy sets. trying to give your offense just the shorter downs and distances to work with. I do think the play action game is going to ramp up again. You're going to try and give Josh Allen deeper drops and more steps and ability to evade Myles Garrett if he does happen to break through, whatever side they align him on, whether it's on Brown, whether it's on Dawkins, whether they have him go in the interior. I think just giving Josh Allen more space to vacate and avoid him is everything you can do to help the player avoid the sack. You know what Josh Allen is when he's off script and his escapability in the pocket outside of it. Allow him to get that chance to see the field. And also, I think, again, with the loss of Denzel Ward in this game for the Browns, who I think is their best player in the secondary, and some inconsistent play from some members of their secondary while still being a really, really good unit, I kind of sit here of the mindset like, just try and get those play action shots early. Try to just get down the field quickly. See if you can really break their spirit early on, because if you can through the air with that PA attempt, I think that's just all the more going to open up your run game, because they're just going to feel the threat of explosive passing from this offense that even against New England had a couple of explosive passes through the air with their play action game. The Brandon Cooks one that got dropped, that was a really nice throw. That was a really nice design. You had the one, I believe, the Dalton Kincaid on third down. I don't recall if that was play action or not, but they were able to move the ball. Having Kincaid in this game and having Brandon Cooks, having Mecole Hardman back potentially to be an explosive threat, just show me some level of downfield presence through your passing game. Not all the time, but on occasion with some play action reps. I think that unlocks the run game. I think they won't have to hold the ball for too long. I think they'll be able to move it through the air and be able to have success. But it really also wouldn't shock me at all if this is just an absolute grind. I mean, for what the Browns defense looked like last week, I don't think they're going to want to get embarrassed like that again. I think they're going to really make it a point to clean things up. I think they're going to really emphasize trying to shut down the run game with some heavier boxes and just make the Bills passing attack beat you, try to man you up, even if you don't think, even if you're the Bills and you're saying, we want to see you try and do that. I mean, I still like Tyson Campbell as a man corner. I still like some of their depth as man options. No Denzel Ward, but I still feel like they can match you up quite well, because this Bills offense receiving core specifically still has a lot to prove. I do think the Browns are going to try and single high you a bit, going to try and test you, see if you can get the passes through the air to these guys. And if you can't, it's going to be a bit of a slog, because now, okay, they have the defensive line to push this offensive line back in the trenches and create some penetration. They have really awesome linebackers. We haven't even talked about Carson Schweisinger, who I think has been their draft this year, the Cleveland draft, just real quick, unbelievable. And you could say what you want about the quarterback selection. I get it. But like, even then, I still think all the other selections they made in this draft were hits. Judkins, Sampson, Schweisinger, Isaiah Bond was an undrafted free agent signing who I think might actually be a very talented option for them in the future. They're a really stout group, this defense, and in part because of a really good draft for the team. I am not sleeping on them. I am not saying this is a guaranteed bucket. I think people will look at the Bears score and say it's going to be a walk in the park. The metrics do not agree with that. Their EPA per play is still very high. They are still a very formidable unit. And you have a Myles Garrett on left, right, interior, wherever you want to line him up, who is chasing a record, and he's going to be extra motivated. This is not a game you sleep on. This is not a team you sleep on. I don't care what the record looks like. While I do think the Bills can have success, just like every week with the uncertainty of this receiving core and the limitations they have on offense, they got to prove it. But if they can against this defense, this is a top 10 unit, and that's not something you sleep on going forward. If anything, it's a badge of honor for your offense going into the playoffs, or even just going into next week when they play Philly, another very, very talented defense. So to summarize it, I think quick passes and runs are going to be what they primarily lean on out of heavier personnel, but expect that play action rate to stay high, to try and give deeper drops to Josh, to maybe create something off script, get by Garrett if he does get free. Give Josh just a second more time to let these things develop, and I think you can still have success and be able to move the ball, even if it is a bit of a slugfest. So that's really all I got for offense versus Browns defense. Anything final you got to say, Adam, before we switch these sides?
Yeah, I wonder if they activate Hardman, in this game, and they do want to play a bunch of single high. I wonder if the Bills don't look at putting Hardman wide on one side and Cooks wide on the other, and say, okay, try to cover two deep verticals on opposite sides of the field. Especially with two guys that got a little bit of speed. I mean, that might be one other way that they can, try to get the Browns out of coming downhill so fast. But I don't know. I think. Yeah. The biggest thing for me overall is the Bills defense has to do their part of the job, right? If the offense is going to come out and test them on the ground and, sort of ease themselves into the water, the one thing that you can't have is the defense giving up an explosive play that gets the Browns offense, some signs of life and juices up their defense and, makes them believe, hey, maybe we have a chance of, actually competing with this team today. You've seen even the very best defenses over the years when their offense is unable to really get anything going at all. Eventually, that that drive, that will to make stops when they know that the offense just is not going to do anything for them, begins to wilt. And that's really where the Bills should be trying to aim to, get this game into that territory on Sunday. But it's certainly not a given. I mean, I'm done with the years of looking at double-digit favorites, in Vegas and thinking that anything is ever a lock. I mean, it's the NFL. You and I had this conversation ahead of Week 5. Like, anybody can beat anybody in this league. Hell, I think it was, I was listening to Sal Capaccio on one of his podcasts talk about, I think the first Super Bowl run with the Bills. They lost back-to-back games that season in which they were double-digit favorites.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's just wild. And but hey, that's the NFL. These guys get paid too. They're professionals. And, there are probably, if this game is played, 100 times, there's probably, based on the spread, I would say there's probably 80 to 85 different variants in which the Bills win this game, but there's still 15 there that, the Browns do. So, they can't come in and expect this to be a win. They have to, keep the momentum rolling, keep doing all those little things right that have allowed them to, win the last 3 games in a row, get up there, take care of business, get out clean, and get on to the next one.
Absolutely. You can't sleep on anybody, but this is also a team that with a bad record still has a top 5 defense in football. And I think that's all the more reason to respect the opponent and not sleep on them. Like, I just hope this team comes in ready and doesn't ride too much of the high that they got off the New England and Bengals games and thinks this team is just nothing and they're going to look beyond them and go over to Philly. Got to respect the Browns and what they got first. This is a good defense. It's a team that I think, I've said this many times about bad teams in the past. Some rebound from it, some don't. I do think the Browns have a bright future. I think this draft year, they're going to have more picks. I think they have the opportunity to really build this roster up more. It's a talented roster. Like, it really is. You could do a lot worse than what the Browns have here. And if they had the real apex quarterback, which maybe that is Sanders, we just have to see. It's very early on in his career, so I don't want to crown him, but I also don't want to take away from him the good moments he has had in his young career. Then I do think that they're going to be in great shape for the future because, again, there's just so much juice on this defense, and it's truly a unit that, man, like, give the Bills this roster, give the Bills this defensive roster exclusively with the offense they have now, and I think they're the 1 seed in the AFC. That's how good I think it is. But yeah, I want to switch gears to the Browns offense versus the Bills defense because you brought that point up about the Browns rushing attack. Now, I do want to say they do not have Dylan Sampson in this game, so the kind of counterpunch to Quinshon Judkins and that pass catching back with really explosive playability, he will be out for this game, so you don't have to worry about him. They're missing their starting tackle in Jack Conklin, so he's out for this game as well. And the big one, they're missing David Njoku, who is not going to be playing in this game as well, at least from the last thing I read. I don't know if that's been confirmed yet or if he's like still quote unquote questionable, but I think he's had 3 straight do not practices for a knee injury. I don't know if he's been ruled out yet, but if he has been, or if he hasn't been, I think it's very likely you don't see him or you see a limited version of him. But all this to say, I'm still scared of Judkins. I'm still scared of this Browns rushing attack because I'm really scared of any rushing attack given the current composure of this Bills rushing defense that, again, had a couple of really good weeks when they played Cincinnati and Pittsburgh, but Travion Henderson had his way. I mean, they diced him up. I don't think the Bills were really expecting to get pummeled on the ground like that from the Pats O-line and their rushing attack, but they could not get off blocks. They were missing tackles, taking bad angles. Things were very muddy up front, and it led to Travion Henderson getting some explosive opportunity. Now you have Judkins, who I think is also a tremendously talented back, part of that same Ohio State backfield. And even if the offensive line has been dealing with injury, even if it hasn't been as good of a unit as it been in years past, I do think that if the Bills are going to present some of those same issues that they did last week, as far as inability to shed, inability to free themselves up and muddy the lanes for Judkins, it could potentially be, again, another slugfest game because you're playing this game on the road in Cleveland. The weather, I don't know what the forecast is going to be. I'm actually going to look that up once I turn it back to you, Adam. But if there's any inclement weather at all, that could be an issue when you're talking about a ground and pound game. I think the big thing for me, though, is like you alluded to with Shedeur Sanders over the past few weeks, while I do think there have been flashes of good from him and early on in his career, not good enough to really elevate the Browns offense to a tremendous degree, with the exception of the Tennessee game, which is, you could argue, I don't think it's hard to argue, the best game of his career so far. Since week 11, the Browns are still the worst EPA per play offense in the NFL. I think that has more to do with their passing offense than their running offense. And I think the Bills have my permission and the permission of many fans alike to maybe stack the box a bit more in this game, maybe post some more heavy boxes, maybe post some more, hey, we're going to try and take Judkins out of this game and prove that Sanders can beat us through the air consistently. We've really been a fan of our man coverage unit. We think Max Hairston and Christian Benford are doing a great job. We don't believe too much of the receiving core options you have, and Judy and Bond, and it's not going to be Njoku, so you're going to have Harold Fannin probably get matched up with Taron Johnson or a linebacker. I think this is a game where I expect the Bills to play a lot of single high, stack the box pretty heavily, and just try to see if Sanders can beat you through the air. Because if you can't, and you have the extra bodies in the box, even with the tackling issues, even with the lack of gap integrity at times up front, again, maybe it's moving Sanders back inside and getting some juice there. I think they have an opportunity to put Sanders in a bit of a blender. Sean McDermott has a very good record against rookie quarterbacks. I think this is an opportunity to kind of continue the trend of, hey, we're going to make him beat us, but we don't believe in you. You're going to have to prove to us that you can beat us through the air, because if you can, we'll make those pivots and we'll start throwing the kitchen sink at you in terms of our coverages. But we probably going to be a bit more vanilla, quote unquote, as in just like, we're going to show you a lot of single high, maybe drop into some cover three, but we want to just stack the box and let you try to beat us through the air and not have Judkins beat us on the ground. What do you think of that, Adam? I mean, is that valid? What do you disagree? What's it on your end?
Yeah, I think what this could look like in terms of another game that they played this season that it would look most similar to is they should go back and dust off their game plan from week 2 against the New York Jets. When you look at Justin Fields finished, or not finished the season's still going, but anyways, he, as a starter, he had a 45% success rate. And you look at where Shedeur Sanders is, a whole 10% below that, 35.3%. And so, you really, I think it's all about stuffing the run. Don't let them have any signs of life on first and second down in the run game. And then, get them into these third mediums, third and longs, and make them use Shedeur Sanders to beat you. And I think if they're able to do that, not only will they, get a lot of the results they want, force punts, but I think there's going to be opportunities for turnovers. I think that they're going to have opportunities to, force interceptions and possibly give the offense some short fields to knock in some easy points. Realistically, from a game script situation, that week 2 matchup based on, the way that this Browns offense runs, to me, it feels very, very similar to what the Jets were when they first started off the season with Justin Fields under center. And to me, I think that's the direction that you want to go.
For sure. That I just don't see really the need to do anything differently. You haven't been given really much of a sample size from Sanders and this Browns receiving core that they're a very top 5 dynamic passing attack. I think for Sanders, it's not that I don't believe in him at all as a pro. I just think it's been very inconsistent from him. And I think that has a lot to do with what's around him. Some of the issues with his pass protection, which has been a very big problem. I think they're the second worst ranked unit in the NFL right now. So that's a huge issue. Now you have the injury to Conklin too, to just kind of further the issue. Him just trying to get up to speed with the NFL level and kind of adjusting from college, where a lot of Colorado was kind of like half field reads and just like simplifying things a bit. And again, that's not a knock on Sanders. It's just a lot of college offenses try to kind of carry you that way and have you develop it over time. I still believe in Sanders as a pocket passer, but even again, I think the strength of this defense is feasting on guys that are pocket passers that don't really have a dynamic element. Like, it's not that Sanders can't go off script. He definitely can. But when you're comparing him to someone like Justin Fields, I think the threat of Justin Fields' legs is a bit more prominent than Shedeur Sanders. Not to say Sanders can't do it, but rather it's not probably a priority to have a spy on Sanders unless he's beating you early in the game with his legs, which is very possible given the penetrating style of this defense and how much space they create between the sticks and how quarterbacks like to attack it. Drake May did it just last week. Maybe Sanders is plotting on that this week, but I just don't think there's a reason to do anything differently than basic 3, basic 1, and just stack the box. Again, like if you shut down the run, do you have to ask yourself, if you're Sean McDermott or really anyone watching this game, do you think Sanders has done enough to prove to you that he's going to beat you in 4 quarters consistently through the air? And if he does, that's a testament to him. it's going to be a great thing for Browns fans. I just don't think we've seen it enough. I think we've seen it in samples. Again, the Tennessee game, he had a pretty good game, but against the Bills defense that has feasted on rookie quarterbacks, I think this is the type of defense you're going to see them play. And I think they could have a lot of success with it should they be able to execute just on the ground with, again, angles, tackles, and gap discipline. If they can do that, I think they're going to be in a great spot. I think just looking it up now, David Njoku is not playing it. He is confirmed out. So I just wanted to clear that up because I said maybe. Found it. The report, he is out. And also in Cleveland, Ohio, it will be 31 degrees and sunny with a little bit of clouds. So if you are going to that game, not going to be too bad. No lake effect snow, which early in the season, or actually before the season even started, when I did the schedule prediction on this show, I had said, I'm kind of scared of what the weather could look like in this game, like December in Cleveland, given what they were building at the time. Oh God, is this going to be one of those like blizzard run heavy games? But thankfully it seems like it's going to be a normal day, pretty good football day, just in terms of like how cold it's going to be. So I think on both sides of the ball, this is one of those games where the Browns have an incredibly good defense, but if this Browns offense just limits itself and continues to remain stifled in the passing game, can't air it out, can't really do anything vertically down the field consistently enough. Maybe the Bills man corners are just winning, which I think they can. And that's such a nice thing to say because it's been a problem for them. But Hairston, Benford, and White have all proven that their man coverage reps are sound and that they can really carry you there. Then I think the Bills are going to have success negating that. And I think the offense, it might be a situation. Again, nothing is absolute. The Browns could play a great game. But if you believe in what the Bills are as a team and what their strengths are matching up with the Browns' weaknesses, then I think what you could see is a case of, like you alluded to, Adam, week 2, shutting the air game down and just clamping this offense to be one-dimensional, can't run the football, not able to generate long drives, plays right into the Bills game script, and they end up, even if the Browns defense is playing a good game, probably just grinding it out to win something like 24-7, or even if you want to say their 30-point, 29-point margin, like 28 to 31 points to like 10 points. I'm not going to give a final score prediction, but it's just what I could see. If everything went to crap and we were completely wrong, it's because Judkins is running wild. The run defense is really bad and the Browns are hanging around, and you could see a close game in that regard. But I just think that this is an example of McDermott has a great opportunity to get the defense on the right track and just, again, keep things extremely simple and make that pivot if you have to. So that's really all I got on this matchup. Adam, anything final before we give our final thoughts?
I was just going to look up. I don't know what the total is. I know what the spread is, 10.5. I wanted to see do you know what the total is for this game?
I do not. I can look
All
it
right.
up.
I just found it. It's 41.5. So,
Ooh.
that basically implies, wow, the Jet score was 30-10.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, 40, but like you think 40. Oh, so like what? Would you say 41? So like
it's 41 and yeah, 41.5 is the, is the line.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I
think
could see a 27-17 spread. I could see it. Like, I'm not saying the Browns are screwed in this game either. Like, I think they have plenty of potential to make noise. Anyone can run on this Bills defense. Like, anyone can, and I believe in Judkins to do it, even with the O-line. I don't want to like badmouth them because listen. I saw 2 Travion Henderson 50+ runs. I thought I was going to go to my grave last week. So I will sleep on nobody until I have a reason to be able to go to bed at night. That is just how I'm going to put it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think, I think they cover, but I don't think it's going to be by, 20 points like it was against the Jets. I think they just, this game is about just getting in, getting the job done and getting out. And, as long as they, as long as they do that, and for the love of God, stay healthy,
Yes.
we can be moving on to the next week and seeing another defense that's going to, be tough in Philly.
Yeah. And I do have to wonder, I mean, that Philly game, if you win this Cleveland game and the Patriots lose to Baltimore, that Philly game doesn't have the same gravity because it doesn't really change the outcome regardless for your chances at the division, maybe just seeding, but even then it's an NFC matchup. I think in a way, you're really hoping that game doesn't really mean much other than just like, hey, litmus test hour. We're playing the Eagles, the defending champs. How do we stack up? But I'm hoping that game doesn't mean anything. I'm hoping it's just like a fun little, it almost feels like a late season exhibition. And that you're just getting them to see the Bills play the Eagles in Buffalo for the first time since 2019, I believe, when Carson Wentz and co were there. I think, again, it's a game the Bills have all the capability and all the bandwidth to win. don't sleep on your opponent. Don't pretend that defense is a non-factor. It is very good. Don't pretend Myles Garrett doesn't exist. Don't repeat the mistakes you made in Houston. Chip the man, double the man, even if that means freeing up some other pass rushers. You got to be cognizant of who you're up against, man. That is a all-world player, best pass rush productivity in football, well-deserved, and truly just I hope he sets the record next week. That's what I will say. I want Myles Garrett to do it, and I want him to do it before week 18. So it's like done in the actual course of like an original NFL season, but do it next week. Get the 1.5 next week. Take this week off. Enjoy yourself. Watch from the sideline. Don't bother. It's all good. We're just here to get our hopeful win and move on. You guys want better draft position. We support that. We could be mutual here. We don't have to do this, Myles. Please. I know you want to sack Josh Allen and put him on the picture forever. We don't want that. We'll even give you the half a sack. How about that? We'll give you the half, and you get the full one next week. I'll take that. Right. I will live in that world. That is totally fine by me. Just give us the win, and we'll give you a half sack so that next week, I don't even know who they're playing next week. You get that one sack, we're good. Now watch. I said that he's going to have like 3 this week, and I'm just going to.
I know.
You know what? But even then, if he gets it, kudos, man. It's well-deserved. He's an unbelievable player. And if the Bills were to win and Myles Garrett got the sack record, like, would you take that trade-off? I would take that trade-off. Give me a win.
Sure, he can have 2 in the fourth quarter against Mitchell Trubisky.
Sign me up. Not even joking. Like, I would even be like, hey, Mitch, go out there, go give him to him. Just pull the Brett Favre. If he touches you on the shoulder, just collapse. Okay. We just let's give him something back for this. But no, in all seriousness, like, very good defensive unit. Even without Denzel Ward, I think the secondary is going to be stout. Just prove you can beat him in the air, and I think you could have success. Defense, man down or bear down that run game, man up those receivers. And I think in the same vein, it's a big opportunity for this Bills team to kind of just keep the momentum on for what they've been able to do the past few weeks on offense. Build another win, another AFC win, stay healthy, and we could be in good shape. But nothing in absolutes, Adam. Anything can happen, but I appreciate the heck out of you. This was a ton of fun. Any closing thoughts on anything we've discussed tonight before we sign off?
I was just playing around with the simulator. I want to know, it's interesting the thought about the Philadelphia game, where they're going to be at. I got to play with it a little bit, but I wonder, the 1 seed is technically still in play. It's a long shot, but it is still technically in play. So, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, though. Let's beat Cleveland this week, and then we can talk about that.
It's a Cleveland team that they know who, like, when you're a team like Buffalo, who's been the division winner the past 5 years, is going to the playoffs consistently, your quarterback's the MVP, you take notice of that and you bring your best ball against them. That's why I don't sleep on games like this too, because teams like that would love to just get that spoiler win at the late part of the season where it's like, hey, we beat Buffalo. We got something to build off of for our young guys. Don't be the example. Like, I guess is my message to the team. Don't be the example. Don't be the bulletin board material. Don't be the spark plug for other teams. Just get your job done. Handle your business. Play a clean game. Get out of there with the win. Get out of there healthy. That's all I can ask for. I hope they can do it. It would be a nice notch in the belt for going forward when you play again Philly and eventually the playoffs. And we'll see what their seeding looks like. Number 1 seed, not out of the question, but I personally not buying into it. I just want them to go to the playoffs and get it done there. I don't care what the path looks like at this point, Adam. I don't care if it's division, no division, 1 seed, no 1 seed. I think at this point, we've seen them win the division the past 5 years. It hasn't amounted to anything for them. Just get in the playoffs and get it done. That's all I ask you to do. And if you can, we'll have a very happy episode at the end of the season. So
that's right.
You are a tremendous guest as always. I appreciate the heck out of you for joining me on a Friday night. Where can the people find you? What do you got going on? Give the plugs. This is your floor.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. So you can follow me on Twitter at Adam Pencil, spelled just like it is on the screen. Usually I'm tweeting out win merit index. I look at, how justifiable a win was for each team in the NFL week over week. I'm always tweeting out different Bill stats, film clips, just things that I find that are interesting, little nuggets about either the, game from the previous week, upcoming opponents, playoff seedings, etc. I'm also covering shameless, a lot of little Sabres tidbits here and there. Obviously huge hockey fan and they've got a lot going on in that organization right now. So that's where I'm at, though, at Adam Pencil on Twitter. And I hope that everybody has a great holiday. Always good to hang out with you, Joe, and talk Bills football. And hopefully we've got 3 more wins here to look forward to, in the closeout of the season and the last season in the stadium.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Last season, last game is coming up soon. I think those tickets are retailing at over $1,000, which is pretty nuts. I looked at it like way earlier on in the season and I was like, that's not that surprising. But Adam, again, this was a great conversation and you bring the heat every time. If you guys are not following him on Twitter, please do. If you like our content, Adam is one of the driving forces behind everything we do here. And just again, the insight you'll learn from him, the statistics, the in-game neutrality, the composure he keeps, that is something that is well worth your time. It is, again, just content that is very valuable if you're a Bills fan. So I highly recommend giving him a follow and checking out his work. It's really, really great stuff. And Adam, again, thank you so much for being here. You are welcome back anytime. I hope next time we speak, it is of a positive note because they got a win on Sunday and they did well enough down the stretch to quell all of our worry for the playoffs. But for this week, we're going to say good night to all of you watching, listening. Happy holidays, friends. Seriously, I hope you have a wonderful time with your family, with your loved ones, wherever you're going to be. Enjoy it. It comes around once a year and then it's gone really quickly. So savor it. Just focus on the little moments and have a lot of fun. I know I will be. I know Adam will be as well. So we wish you happy holidays from us here on Under Review, from us here at Cover One. Enjoy yourselves. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. This episode is going to be posted shortly after this records, so you will be seeing it ideally on later Friday night. So enjoy the rest of your weekend. Enjoy your football Sunday. And as always, friends, go Bills. Happy holidays, and we will see you soon. Good night.